Hello, my name is Kelt and thank you for watching. We are sending in this case because it's really amazing and exciting. It's amazing and exciting because we have two parties, Nobi on one side, the supplier, and Heimsteiner on the other side, the buyer, who really changed the mindset on how to collaborate. Not only did they change the mindset on how to collaborate to realize mutual value, the asymmetric value, so they both left the negotiation room with a higher profit, but on top of that, they even make a huge positive impact on the environment. And that is basically the story I want to share with you today. Now, these two companies, very briefly, Nobia is one of Europe's biggest kitchen manufacturers, and Heimstaden is one of the biggest real estate developers that we got. Heimstaden owns hundreds of thousands of apartments in 10, 11 different countries, and Nobia are working around Europe as well, delivering different brands. And the brands we're talking about, because they have different kitchen brands, the brands we're talking about in this case is the brands HTH. Now, the variable in this negotiation that we're going to touch upon is really the key ones. Obviously, there are more variables, but these are the ones that created not only a financial impact, but an environmental impact as well. And besides terms of payment, we're going to talk about transportation. We're going to talk about materials. We're going to talk about the product size. We're going to talk about labor, and we're going to talk about the design and order process. And obviously, the focus for both parties was to try and optimize and create a better profit for both parties. So we're moving away from the traditional zero sum, where one is winning at the expense of the counterpart. To give you a very brief background, traditionally when you deliver a kitchen, the tabletop is made of laminate. Laminate is a reasonable cheap material, and it doesn't last as long as, for instance, composite. And in this case, both parties were looking at ways to optimize the financial side and at the same time looking at a way where they could optimize the environmental impact. And what they discovered actually was that if they changed the production material from laminate to composite, they would actually create a product that would live longer. We're talking about 25 years compared to, for instance, only 10 years. The problem is that composite is a way more expensive material. The cost is actually almost 100% higher than laminate. But here comes the brilliant idea in this negotiation. Because Nobi actually discovered that they had a sub-suppliers who were manufacturing composite tabletops to something completely different. But they could actually use those tabletops, even though it was a waste product because it wasn't going to be used for anything. They could actually use them, glue them together at a very high quality and deliver them as tabletops to these kitchens to Heimstaden. By doing that, they actually reduced the environmental impact, since otherwise it would be a waste product that could certainly be reused. And secondly, they also had another impact I'm going to talk about in a second, because the tabletops were smaller and they glued them together at the building site. And that meant they actually had a saving on logistics and transportation. So since it was a waste product that couldn't be used for anything, they could actually utilize it in this case, and obviously removing a product that otherwise would be wasted going into this production right here. Not only were they then able to deliver a higher quality product in the apartment, which was good, obviously, both for the user, the resident, but also for the environment, since it's a product that's going to live way longer. They could also do it at a lower cost, about 50% of what the original traditional cost would be. So a major win for the environment, a major win for the buyer, a major win for the supplier, and a major win for the user. Due to the smaller dimension of this tabletop, they could also reduce the delivery cost by one truck instead of two trucks. And the reason for that was twofold. One, it was a smaller product that could easily fit into one truck, so you don't have to send off two trucks that you traditionally would have to. Secondly, we're also talking about a reduction in labor cost, because there's regulation and laws that actually put a limit on how much the contractors are allowed to carry. And in this case, that limit was 44 kilos. And when you go back and look at the traditional tables, the tabletops, they were way bigger and way heavier. So that required more labor, more contractors to come out and carry those tabletops. By reducing the dimension, moving from laminate to composite, they could actually save money on the labor as well. And I have to remind you, we're talking about a minimum of 2,600 deliveries every second year. And this is a framework agreement that goes for 6 years. So you can say 6 years multiplied by a minimum of 2,600 kitchens. So they could reduce transportation requirement and cost by an additional about 50%. And by doing that, just reducing transportation, they are reducing the environmental impact by 3.84 kilos CO2 per tabletop delivered. And you can multiply that by 2,600 kitchens per year, plus the environmental impact of reusing a product otherwise that would go to waste. Traditional contractors didn't want to do measurement. Don't ask me why, but they didn't want to do measurements on site. So traditionally, before this new agreement, Nobia had to send out a separate individual with no other purpose than just do the measuring in the kitchen. And obviously, that's kind of a stupid thing because you have the contractors on the building site anyway. So why not just have them spending a little bit of time and doing the measurement? Nobia and Heimstaden were successful in actually trying to convince them that that was an option. So they actually made it possible for the first time to have contractors on site do the measuring instead of Nobia sending out a separate individual. And by doing that, obviously, they would save money. They would save about $180 per unit, again, multiplied by 2,600 units, which would be a total of close to $500,000. And on top of that, obviously, they would also save transportation costs since you don't have to send an individual out to each unit just to do the measurement. Yet another variable was that instead of designing and creating a new kitchen setup for more than 2,600 apartments, Heimstaden and Nobia agreed on one single model. Now that model could be adjusted in different ways, but by doing that, Nobia actually saved a tremendous amount of money by not creating a proposal and a design for each unit, but could basically just do a volume production. That gave them a reduction in cost of about $150, again multiplied by a minimum of 2,600 kitchens. So that is roughly $400,000 per year multiplied by 6 years. So the solution that I find is nothing but brilliant in this case is that the parties, by changing the material of the tabletop, reduce the cost to the buyer, reduce the cost to the supplier, created a better product for the end user, and even save the environmental impact by reusing a product that otherwise would be wasted. By changing the tabletop on top of that, they actually reduced cost on transportation and could utilize labor costs better since we didn't need as much labor contractors on site. So the whole cost and the whole value chain just reduced cost and at the same time made a positive impact on environment since transportation were not as needed. We also saw that the design and order process changed, so it was way simpler, which saved money for the supplier. And the total saving in this case was roughly $1 million per year, plus a huge positive impact on the environment. Nothing but a brilliant example of two parties collaborating, not only to create a mutual win, but also creating a win for the environment. A true partnership negotiation. Thank you for listening.